live here in Southbridge, and this is my friend Kristin Celmer. She also lives here in Southbridge. And we have kind of teamed up because I was starting a little hobby of making soap, and Kristin is also doing a melt and pour soap, which is a different technique than I do. And I'll go over my technique, and she'll go over hers with you in a few moments. So, making soap. So how did I get into making soap? A few years ago, I was helping my parents clean out my grandparents' house, and I came across my grandmother's high school home ec notebook. And in it was an index card that said soap. And I'll pass this around so you can look at it, but it's a can of lye, a quart of cold water, half a cup of ammonia, half a cup of kerosene, 2 tablespoons of borax, 2 tablespoons of sassafras oil, and 5 pounds of grease.
Oh. What year was that from?
I can only imagine that my grandmother was in high school in like the 40s. So, and so I checked with my father, and he said, oh yeah, we used to save all the grease, and we'll put them in coffee cans, and we'll put them in the cellar, and a couple of times a year, great granny would go down and make soap. And I said, did you really use it? He goes, oh yeah. But I think the point being that I think back then they only washed like once a week or once a year. He tells me. So fast forward a couple of years ago, I'm up at my cousin's house up in North Conway, and he's raising these goats. And I said, Johnny, what are you going to do with the goat milk? And he said, well, we're going to probably make soap and make cheese. And I was like, well, I don't feel like making cheese. But soap kind of interests me because I'm thinking about this piece of paper over there. And so I said, well, when are you going to be able to start doing this? He goes, well, today's actually the first day that we're going to milk the goats. Oh, cool. So he goes out to the barn, and like 40 minutes later, he comes back in with this bunch of milk. And I'm like, Johnny, I don't think that's enough to make soap. He goes, well, I think I didn't realize, I thought that those goats were really cute, but apparently pygmy goats have pygmy teats. And in addition to getting kicked a few times, I don't think he realized that they don't produce as much milk. So I decided I would start making the soap for my aunts as a Christmas present. So I have 3 elderly aunts. I probably shouldn't say that, right? I don't think they watch. They're not from this area. So I said I'll make soap for my aunts for Christmas. And I made the first batch, and it came out really good. And then I thought, you know what? I could have mixed this into it instead. And then I made another batch, and then I made another batch. And before I knew it, I had 3,000 bars of soap. Oh. And John, my husband, John, he says, what are you going to do with all that? I said, well, I guess I can go to the craft fairs and try and sell it. So, hence, that's how Kleen Guyz soaps was born, because I had to make back some of the investment money that I put into buying all the equipment and all the stuff to make 3 bars of soap for my aunts for Christmas. So that's how I got into the making of the soap. Now what we do is Kristin and I, we go to home, we do demos like this. We actually go to some home parties. If you have friends that want to learn how to make soap and drink wine, we do sip and suds either at your house, or we do them up at the Wellness Cooperative in Sturbridge. In fact, we have one tomorrow night. That's $15, and with that you get a couple of bars of soap to take home. Today we're just doing the demo for you, and you're welcome to purchase some product later. So what is soap? So back to high school chemistry. If you mix a base with an acid, you get salt. So oils, the grease from my grandmother's, in my grandmother's soap, the grease is a fatty acid. So we need to mix that with a base. And in olden times, they used to use potash lye. And apparently up until recently, they used to still do it at Old Sturbridge Village, but they don't anymore. And that's where you take the ashes from your fire, you filter water through it, and you end up with lye water. And I decided that was just a little too messy, and I wasn't going to get into it. So I went over to Aubuchon Hardware and found that they sell this wonderful product that cleans out your drains. It is 100% sodium hydroxide, 100% lye.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to do this at home, do not buy Drano or any of the other products that have other chemicals in it. This is 100% just lye.
Burn your pipes.
And it will burn through your pipes. And for that reason, I have to wear some protective stuff when I'm making the soap. An interesting thing that happened once, I was cleaning up afterwards, and I took my rubber gloves off, and I got a little bit on my hands, and I was noticing it wasn't washing off. And what I discovered, it was just a little bit, so it didn't burn too bad. It just tingled a little bit, but it wasn't washing off for a while. It took like 5 minutes for me to wash it off my hands, and it was very greasy feeling. And then I realized what was happening was the lye was actually turning the oil on my skin into soap, which was kind of interesting.
Cool.
So, so we're going to be mixing some fat with the lye and end up with a salt that we call soap. All right? And from my point of view, before we get to Kristin, we're going to make what I call naked goat. It's just goat milk as a liquid to dissolve the lye. And we're going to use some of our oils that we get at Big Bunny and Job Lot, thank you. And then I get the lye at Aubuchon. So I try and source everything locally. And to be honest, I tried sourcing online, and you can find cheaper prices, but once they add the shipping in, it wasn't cheaper.
Yeah.
So Big Bunny, Job Lot, and Aubuchon are your best deal for soap making supplies. Okay. The only expensive thing we have is the goat milk, which I do get at Big Y. The farmers around here, again, it's a little pricey to be using local goat milk, so I just buy it at the Big Y. So let's get started.
Lunch already.
It's lunch already. It's true. That's what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this mold. This is a 2-pound soap mold. You can use at home if you want. You can line a bread pan with parchment paper and do it yourself. Just make sure that the pan is completely lined, because if the soap sticks to it, you'll have a heck of a time getting it out. It's like when you burn a cake onto a pan, it won't come off too well. So let's start with our formula. Oh, and I have formulas.
Thank you. Oh.
I have formulas. So you too can do this at home, Gabriel.
Whether Margaret wants you to, it's a different matter.
What's up?
Whether Margaret wants you to, it's a different matter.
The Margaret. There's 2, and 1, and 2, and Margaret.
Thank you.
Gus, I'll get you later.
Yeah.
All right. So, to fill this 2-pound mold, we want 2 pounds of grease. And what we're going to do over here under our oils is we're going to use, let's say, 10 ounces of vegetable shortening. We're going to use 13 ounces of coconut oil. And we're going to use 9 ounces of olive oil. Okay, does that add up to 2 pounds, 24 ounces?
Who can do the math? Did I call it out?
16, 32. Is that up to 32 ounces? Yeah. Cool. All right. So we're going to measure that out. Now we've got to figure out how much lye to turn that much oil into soap is. If we put too much lye, the lye will just sit there and won't stay lye. If we don't put enough, then we end up with a big blob of grease. So you need just the right amount. And every kind of oil has its own saponification factor. That's a big word. Saponification factor. So now is where I need your help, because you got the cheat sheet. We're not the Red Sox, but we got the cheat sheet. So the saponification factor for vegetable shortening, I think, is 0.135. 0.135. And the saponification factor for coconut oil is 0.184. And for the olive oil, 0.136. So we multiply that out, and we come up with 1.35. For the coconut oil comes out to what? 2.4. 2.4. And the olive oil comes out to 1.25. Add those up and we come up with 5. So 5 ounces of lye will turn all of this oil into soap. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now what if I measure a little bit off or wrong and there's too much lye? That lye then won't have a chemical reaction and it will stay in the soap. Also, we'd like our soap to be a little bit creamy and have some emollients in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by 0.95 to reduce the amount of lye and guarantee that we don't that we don't put too much lye in. Does that make sense?
So safety.
I see a question.
To go too far under.
You can go too far under. General rule of thumb is 5 to 20%. So that's a big margin of error, and we're going to go with the 5%. Okay. All right. So 5 times 0.95 is 4.75. So we're going to 4.75 ounces of lye is what we're going to use. Now we need to dissolve the lye because it's a powder. So we want to dissolve it. And to dissolve, and the general rule of thumb, and this is not exact, because sometimes you might want your soap to be a little more liquidy when you pour it into the mold, so it gives you a little more time to pour it. Sometimes you want it to be a little drier so that it hardens up faster. That's up to you. But general rule of thumb is multiply your lye by 2.2. And that should come out to 10.5. I'm not as dumb as I look. Nobody's that dumb. Okay, so now we got our measurements. We've got how much oil we need, we've got how much lye we need, and we've got how much liquid we need to dissolve the lye. So let's get started. I have right here 10 ounces of vegetable oil. I'm going to melt it. And normally I do this at home on the stove.
Is that shortening?
This is the vegetable shortening, yep. And vegetable shortening has the highest melting point. So we're going to start with that. So we're going to get that nice and soft. Then we're going to add the coconut oil to it, and they will melt together. And then we'll add the olive oil. And that should bring our temperature down to about 100 to 110 degrees. This is a cold process soap making, so you want your temperatures to be low. We're going to try and match that with the lye and the goat milk. We're going to try and get them at about 110, and then we can mix them together. If they're a lot higher, the soap is going to solidify too fast, and we won't get it into the mold soon enough. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see how we're doing here. We're going. All right. In the meantime, I have pre-measured also the coconut oil. What was that, 13 ounces?
Yeah.
So oh, by the way, I got a scale back here. I'm just telling you, I have a scale back here. It's hidden by these books available here at the Jacob Edwards Library, courtesy of your local librarian, Margaret Morrissey.
So also to just, for reference, this calculation is a standard calculation for soap making. So you can find it on the internet. You can find it in one of these books that you can check out at the library here as well. They also have reference to it to give you kind of examples of other types of material too. So the information is readily available. It's a common formula that many soap makers use for all kinds of soap.
Right, so, and then what you have to do though is, I think on your sheet, right around the middle, there should be a website.
Yes.
And that, that website has the saponification table, and it lists like hundreds of different oils that you can use. And also in terms of dissolving, this, I didn't make with goat milk, I made it with Guinness beer. Okay, so that's a little different.
Guinness stout.
I actually used
Extra
Guinness.
stout.
I actually did use Guinness.
Do you want to stir it? It was.
Yeah, that's
pretty
good. That's looking good. I'm gonna put in this bigger one because I'm gonna use the smaller one for the line.
Can you use pretty much any liquid?
Basically, yeah. I'm trying to, you don't want to use, and here I am contradicting what I just said, you don't want to use alcohol,
Okay. Which you just did.
which I did in the Guinness, but I boiled it.
Ah, okay. You boiled it.
You boil out the alcohol.
What a
first.
sin.
How about if you?
It was, but you know what it was? I'll be honest, you know what it was? I had an open can, and it had gone flat the next day, so I used it.
All
That
right.
makes sense, yeah.
And
Somebody else did it.
And the same with the with this champagne shimmer. I used Prosecco that was left over from a party.
If for some reason you wanted to do like an orange, could you use like an orange juice, or would that be acidic?
I did use orange juice in a shampoo once, and it came out very nice, but because of the acidity, it did start to harden up fast, so I had to get it into the mold really, really, really fast.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got this handy dandy thermometer here. Barbara Day, you are 76 degrees.
Someone check her.
I'm just going to melt this a
Concerned.
little bit. Does anybody have these things? I never found a real use for them until this.
Let me ask you a question.
Ask a question.
You go back to your grandmother with the
She's
fat.
dead.
Okay, with the fat.
With the fat. My grandmother was very skinny,
No.
actually.
But the fat for the soap they were connecting, which I find intriguing. Were they using every type of fat, or were they just using?
My father just said it was the leftover grease from like making bacon and stuff. So
That was animal fat.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so to be truthful, I went back up to my cousin's house over Christmas, and in the freezer were all these like packages, and I said, Johnny, what is that? He goes, oh, those are the fat backs from the pigs. It's like, oh. I said, what are you going to do with that? He goes, I was going to give it to you so you can make soap out of it. I was like, oh, gee, aren't you nice?
Thank you.
So I did. I took them home, cut them up. I rendered it down in my crock pot. Stinks, stinks, stinks. But it makes a pure white lard, just like you get at Big Bunny, the Marl. It's anybody in the butter section. You probably never see it. It's the blue box up on the top shelf. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Marl.
But Billy, where I was going, if you had beef fat in comparison to
Tallow,
pig
yeah.
fat, it's one is very hard and the other is very soft.
Yep.
Pig fat is actually soft. It's pretty soft.
So it'll give your soap a different property, and that's why
That's
we
what
use
I
the
was-
different.
yeah.
That's why we use the different oils. So I'm gonna let this mix up for a little bit, and hopefully it'll melt. If it doesn't, yeah, we will have said we had fun, right? In the meantime, I'm gonna weigh out my goat milk. 0. So I freeze the goat milk because the lye, when it hits the liquid, starts to heat it up. And if I were to just use like room temperature or even refrigerated goat milk, it would get so hot that it would actually caramelize the sugars in the milk. So to keep it cool, and remember, and it's always best to mix at around 110 degrees, we're going to use, oh, now it's just semi-frozen because it's been sitting here for a while. All right, there we go. And how much did I want? 10 and a half. So this came out to just, I don't do the laundry. It comes out to just 10 ounces. So I'm going to put in a half an ounce of just distilled water. You want to use distilled water because in case there's any funky little thing hanging around in your water, you don't want it to start growing or anything, so use distilled. And you could just use plain distilled water to make it, you know. If you mix it in while it's at room temperature, if you mix the lye in while it's at room temperature, it's going to get super hot and you're going to have to wait like almost 2 hours for it to cool down enough.
Yeah.
So that's another reason to use the, I'm not going to mix it in this plastic thing because it will melt. Okay. So how are we doing here? You know what? There's another measuring cup under here. Take a temperature. We're at 96.
It's healthy.
It's healthy.
Healthier than I am.
Can you try and get these clumps out? Put them in here and microwave them. In the meantime, I am now going to measure out the lye. Stand clear. I'm going to zero this out. I got to put my protective stuff on, thank you. So thank you, Gateway players, for the goggles. They were left over from the Oompa Loompas.
Oh my gosh, what a great use.
What a great use. I got a bunch of them if anyone wants to try them on. And my Lady Playtex gloves from the Big Bunny. Love the Big Bunny. Love the Big Bunny. And I'm going to measure out, what, 4.75 ounces of lye. So it, just so you can see, it looks like a powder. Ah. 0.1 ounce, come on. Guys, you're going to edit this, right? Max. Did I say, oh, you're Gus. You're editing it too, right? Okay. So here's our lye. There we go. And how much olive oil do we need? 9 ounces? A little too much. Too little. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so Kristin, I'll ask her to mix that in when that's ready. Now for the fun stuff. We're gonna mix. This is all nice and frozen. You can see I start mixing in the lye. And you can see it's already starting to melt. If anybody wants to come up and take a look, you can. I have the goggles here for you if you want to put them on.
Have you learned a lot, Ellie, trial and error by doing and?
Yeah, the biggest thing is making sure everything gets down to that like 100 to 110 degrees. Because I'm a very impatient person, and sometimes I just let it go at, and everything's up around 150 degrees. And the soap just seizes right up and it can't get it into the mold. So you can even see that it's starting to turn a little bit yellow there because it's heating up and the sugars in the milk are heating up.
So is that what you mean here, air temps over 110 with speed trace?
It speeds the trace. The trace is the property of the liquid soap when it's like, think of pudding. This trace is like a pudding, and then you let it sit for a while, and then it firms right up. How are we doing, Kristen?
It's too cold, so I'm trying to heat some of it up to
Just a little warm.
balance it.
Okay. And we are a little warm. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. So, next lesson I learned on my first try was, do not try to hand mix soap.
No.
It takes forever. Get a designated designator immersion blender. Okay, Kristen, let's do it. So here's our oil, and here's our lye with our goat milk. We're going to just quickly pour that in. Excellent. That's looking good. We put our immersion blender in. Shake it to get the bubbles out. And as you can see, it's starting to thicken up already. We usually do this for a couple of minutes. Do this for a few minutes. And then we pour it into our 2-pound mold, and you let it sit for a month. Now theoretically, tomorrow I can take this out of the mold and slice it. But I do not want to use this soap for 4 weeks. 4 weeks. That's why I didn't bring my grandmother's soap with me, or the recipe I made with my grandmother's soap, because I only made it last week. It cannot be used for 4 weeks. All of this stuff is at least a month old. Sorry, folks. I got old soap. All right? Now,
Is there a reason to wait?
because the lye is still active.
Oh,
I would hate for you to be burned in the shower.
okay.
I'm going to very carefully take off my protective gear. And then, through the magic of television, oh my gosh, it's solid. A month later, and we're going to take it out of the mold. So we peel away the mold.
Is that really a month old?
I date everything. December 5th.
So it's close enough.
Close enough.
Close enough. Hey, Mr. Sotos.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. You get some remedial later.
Okay.
All right. So you pop out the soap. Nice solid bar. You can touch it. We got this big bar of soap, and nice and smooth here.
Oh, nice.
There you go, Margaret. You all set? Gabriel, I'd offer you some, but I know you don't bathe, so. So then you take it, these crinkle cuts, if anybody knows, and I asked Dexter Russell, these crinkle cuts, I guess they're always made with soft steel, which I didn't realize is such a thing. Good thing the Eiffel Tower isn't made of it, huh? The soft steel, and what happens is eventually they start bending when you're using them, as opposed to the hard steel, which stays pretty solid. But for our purposes, I like to use the crinkle cut.
Makes it pretty.
Prettier.
Prettier. And then I use a straight edge on the back side. And there you have your soap.
Oh.
A month later, you have a soap. And that's just plain goat milk, just like we just made. Now, what I do, and because I'm following you, Gus. I'm trying to be like Gus. I'm trying to be a little bit sustainable here. So what I do is I get from friends, I get their old scrapbooking paper, and I cut it into 2-inch strips, and I wrap it around the soaps and put a label on it. Okay, so I'm trying to upcycle the wrapping. And there's the bell, 7 o'clock. I did good. Half an hour. So that's how you make soap. Now, there are some easier things you can do. And Kristin's gonna go over it with you. Melt and pour. I'll let her explain what goes on there, but it's a lot easier than dealing with the lye and the measuring and the calculating. But I thank you for listening to me for this part, and if you need a party at your house, let us know. Go ahead, Kristin.
Okay, so again, I'm Kristin. I met Billy. Billy actually came to one of my DIY kind of craft nights. So that's how I met Billy, and he made some of my melt and pour soap with me, and he thought, hey, let's get together and let's do both methods and show people kind of the full realm of what you can do with soap making. So from my perspective, I really like the do-it-yourself type of crafts that you can make your own products and learning about that. So kind of how I got started was I actually went to the library and I checked out the books to see how do I make soap with the melt and pour and what can you do, what you should not do, learn some tips, because the library is just a really great resource to find out how to do stuff. A lot of people use,
shaking your head. Yes,
a lot of people use the internet. You can, but there's almost too much information on the internet. So I tend to like a book. I can see the pictures and I can kind of like experiment a little bit and make sure I did it right. So there's a lot of different ways you can, like what Billy said, where he gets his products. I am of a different generation, so I love Amazon because honestly, I work full-time, so for me, when I want to do a craft on the weekend, I want to have everything at the house. I don't want to have to go and I get it. I like the ease of use of online shopping. So, right, wrong, or different, you can also get a lot of the stuff from Michael's or any kind of, I'm from the Midwest, so it's Hobby Lobby, but I don't know what we have. Michael's, and so there's another
AC Moore.
AC Moore. Okay, yes. So any kind of craft store will sell.
Those.
So any kind of craft store will sell like just different packages, and you can get a soap base. So they sell lots of different soap bases out there. Clear, glycerin, white glycerin, there's goat's milk. So this is a base that's already put together. It has already gone through all of the chemical reaction, all the lye, and they have done that process. It also has a different, I think it has a different type of chemical in it to change how you can melt it. So you can melt it multiple times and use it and mold it into whatever you want it to be. Make fun shapes. It's still not the same grade as a commercial soap because that's not made to remelt. This is more of a craft project. So you can get bases, like I said, at the craft store, online. I really look for who else has made soap and what theirs looks like and make sure that it is a good product. Because there's a lot of varying products out there. So you want to get yourself a kind of melt and pour base. There's all kinds, like the oat milk base, the goat milk base, or like the clear glycerin. So you can do a lot of fun stuff, put a lot of fun shapes. Like with Billy's mold, it's silicone. So really, I got these, I think they're just Walmart possibly. Any kind of silicone mold can be a soap mold too. It can be whatever you want. So I got them in the baking aisle. So I have a specific set of stuff. So with anything that you guys do for crafting, a separate set of utensils, a separate set of containers, everything is separate. So I do not cook with or put any kind of cupcakes in the same molds that I use for any DIY craft. That is very important. Not that, I'm trying to find good and safe products to use, but I still am not going to, eat from the same stuff. Just in case. You never know.
The other thing I noticed is sometimes I'll add essential oils to the soap just before it gets to trace, and these things, they start to smell. like the essential oils, so that's a big part of it too.
Right.
Is that
So if you're
gonna be
using-
cooking with it, you want it to smell like lavender.
Right, and also too, a lot of the times when you're adding stuff to soap, essential oils too, they're gonna degrade plastic, so you gotta be really careful on what you're using, because you don't want the plastic to leach into whatever you're using. If you're trying to make something DIY and make something a little safer, a lotion base or something that's, you know, safer than maybe some of the other commercial lotions that are out there, you're limiting what ingredients you're putting in. You don't wanna have something that's leaching plastic into your product. So a lot of craft stuff, I use glass, and then silicone molds for the soap stuff. But for the most part, everything is glass that I use. How to separate that, or a metal measuring cups for various things. I keep that separate too. But I try not to use a lot of plastic. In general, it's just not a good idea. So, basic utensils that you need to make soap, to do a melt and pour, is just a coffee cup. So I'm sure everyone has a million coffee cups. I do. My cabinet was full and I was like, oh my God, I gotta get rid of some of these. So now they're in my soap kit. So all of these cups now are my soap melting cups because they only have soap. I do run them through the dishwasher when I have all my craft stuff. I do one load just of that. Everything just gets washed in there because at the end of the day, it's still soap to me. So for me, I'm taking that risk. So you want to keep, again, another thing, you can use Pyrex glass. It's, you know, something that you could easily pour. So whatever you choose to do at home, something that you can easily melt in and pour in right away. The difference with anything, what Billy said too, with the soap, is that you need to be fast, unfortunately. So it's important to kind of think about what you're doing first, know what you're going to add, and know all your stuff, so that when you're ready, you can just focus. Because again, the soap can seize up at different points, and then depending on what you've already added, it's not a good idea to remelt things. But in theory, the base is remeltable, okay? So you can do a lot of fun things. So there's a lot of different shapes. You can put soap inside of soap. You can put like a fun craft for like kids could be, you could put like a toy in it, so they use it at bath time. So it has a little, you know, whatever shape you decide, and then there's a toy sticking out or something, so when they use it in the tub or something. Or you can just make different decorations. Like this one I put, you can kind of see it has a little teddy bear, has some hearts, just stuck them in the mold to see what would happen. So, and that's a lot what DIY is. You just see what's going to happen. And then we have, you know, you have really cute little things. You can change the color, and you can put little accents in it. This is like a little dog paw mold that I had, and it has, I think, might have coffee. Coffee is a great exfoliant too, so that's a good additive to put in your soap. Or you can just make little, you know, shapes. There's a little teddy bear. You know, whatever the mold is, that can be what you use. So you're going to need to get something to melt in. You need to have your mold, which again, it's just a little silicone cupcake. You could probably use paper too, but they'll seem very weak. I would be afraid it would like melt, or it would react. It might be too hot when you're melting it, and it might tear the plastic. So I would say, I mean, like you could use metal cupcake tins. People have sprayed it with like a nonstick thing. But again, why would you do that? Because I would accidentally cook with that or something. So for me, I keep things separate for any kind of craft product. So just some kind of silicone liner that's nonstick. So you have your thing to melt it in. You have your mold. You need a little mixing stick. These are little bamboo skewers, those long skewers that you'd use. So I thought, oh, well, I have those. I don't know why I don't skewer anything and grill it. So you just have stuff. So I decided to cut these down smaller, and this is what I use for soap. And because it's just soap, I wash it, and it's just a mixing stir. So you need something to stir with that I can wash. So for me, this is an easy one to mix in and not use a spoon and then get it separated. So something to stir with. And then I like to use, so you have an option to color the soap if you want to. There's lots of different things you can use to color. What's most probably popular is going to be mica powder. It's what they use in makeup and lip balm, all kinds of like beauty products. So you can use mica powder to color the whatever beauty product, lipstick and such. So mica powder is very popular. It's a really fine powder that you use to color soap, bath bombs, any kind of beauty product. You can use liquid. To me, I don't really want to use liquid. I think it's food. It could be food coloring. I don't know really what's in it. I've seen people use this for DIY stuff, and when it's referenced in a lot of the different books, Mica Powder is. So I just went that route. But you could absolutely use a natural food coloring. But what you want to be conscious of is using any kind of food product, because with soap is, in theory, it shouldn't have a shelf life. I mean, there shouldn't be anything that makes it go bad. But if you start introducing like fresh lemon zest in it, that sounds great. But in theory, that's going to rot eventually. I mean, it's just breaks down. It's going to penetrate. So that happens with any kind of additive that you're going to put in the soap. So when you use botanicals in your soap, when it mixes with the soap mixture, it's going to eventually turn brown, because that's what it does, because it's mixing and it's going into the flour. So even though it's a dried flour, it's going to eventually discolor. So it's more for decoration than function. So when you think about stuff that goes on top of the soaps, it's more about decoration. It's not about function. Now, like coffee would be more something you could add in, because it would be like exfoliant, scrubbers, that kind of thing. So that would be something like coffee grounds. If you wanted to add, you could use that. A lot of people put activated charcoal in. You know, obviously at that point you're turning your soap black. There's no way around that. You know, yet there's absolutely a lot of benefits to using the activated charcoal. So there's things that you can add. You can add oatmeal. Oatmeal is not going to rot in your soap. You know what I mean? So there's other stuff you would put in your soap in it, but if it's more of the botanicals, it goes on top. So there's different types of additives depending on what your goal is and what you're trying to achieve. You can make it as basic as just using the base, or you can get kind of fancy. It's really, how fancy are you? I don't know. I don't know you very well, so I don't know how fancy you are. You're not. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so the mold, the colorant, and you can add some essential oils. I like to use essential oils in everything. I just love the way they smell. I like a lot of their benefits, therapeutic benefits that they have. So sometimes they're for scent, sometimes they're for another kind of benefit. Maybe they're for a cleansing, antibacterial type of use, or they're just uplifting, because scent is great for your mood and to boost anything. So for me, it's definitely a scent thing to make me happy. So you can pick whatever scent you wanted. Again, totally customizable. Okay? So what I'm going to show you today is, I'm going to show you a base. So we typically, this makes about a 2-ounce piece. So you just kind of cut the chunks up in whatever size, like depending on how many molds you're filling, you're going to go ahead and cut it up. So I had my husband do this for me. He measured it and cut it all for me. So you're going to just put it right in the cup. And what you want to remember is this is going to melt it melts very quickly and it gets very hot. So it's best to do this slower. So rule of thumb, 10 seconds, take it out. It's not going to be done, but you need to just give it a little shake, put it back in. You need to monitor this. You don't want this to run in for a minute. You don't want this to run for 30 seconds at a time. When the cup gets pretty hot. All right, so depending on what you're using, that gets hot too. So if you add too much, so you don't want to overheat, because that also affects the way the soap looks too. So it's best to slowly get it to the liquid form. So Billy's microwave here melts pretty slow. So we found out. Different microwaves obviously have different power, so yours
one I
might.
found in the Stella.
Right, so his is, it's longer than 10-second intervals. Depending on what type of microwave you use, you could use a double boiler. You could, however you melt stuff now, you could absolutely use that too. It's whatever's more. If you don't have a microwave, you don't have to do that. You could do it on the stove with a double boiler. Put the Pyrex in the pot. I do that too when I melt beeswax stuff. So it's just a different way to do it. So you're going to do 10 seconds. And you're going to cut, see, okay, I lied. His microwave is doing great. So you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see, it's already kind of liquid in there. And you just kind of give it a little stir. I don't like to mix it just yet because it's still kind of clumpy and it's going to be all over the wood stick. And then I'm holding a stick full of soap that is not melted. So I just give it a little shake, then you put it back in. And wait a little So, let's take that out. Let's see. Yep, so now it's already, you kind of look at it, yep, that's good. So, okay.
It's old.
It's old, but that's okay. Whatever you have, use everything that you have, because why? You don't need to go buy stuff. You can use everything in your, pretty much stuff in your house. So, this is the mica powder. You don't need very much. When you use a white soap, it becomes more opaque. It's like a pastel-y color. When you use clear, they look awesome. So if you're really interested in color soap and making it pretty, choose a clear base, because it just looks really nice. Because mica powder has like a shimmer, sparkly type of pizzazz. So this, I just shake a little bit in there. And this is easy to get all over, but it washes off. So don't worry about it. It's not going to harm your skin. So you just kind of give it a little bit in there and do a little bit at a time, because obviously you don't want to put too much in. You put too much in, you're changing the reaction in there, it's going to seize up. So the point is to add it slowly, mix it in. You do have to mix it quite, not vigorously, but you need to give it a good stir to get it to incorporate. A lot of people like to use the liquid, color it, because obviously it's liquid, it goes easier. But I think the mica just looks better. So we have kind of a paley color. If everybody can kind of see, right down enough. I don't know if you can see. I did not just drip on the carpet. That did not just happen. It is just soap, so I feel like it's okay. All right. So you're going to mix in the color. Once the color is good, and what can happen too, sometimes when you mix a color and you mix too much and you see it's getting a little stringy, this is still pretty good and liquidy. You can nuke this at this point. This would be the only point you want to keep it liquid, okay, or keep heating it. You don't want to heat it after this point, after you add. So now if you're going to add oatmeal to it, you're going to add essential oils to this, you're no longer reheating it, okay? So you have to commit at this point. So once it's still liquid and the mixture, the color looks good, okay, you're ready. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to add whatever scent. I'm a big fan of peppermint. For me, it just smells good all the time. So I add a couple of drops of peppermint, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Whatever your preference is. Peppermint's pretty strong, so maybe you only need 1. But I don't know. We'll do 5 today. So now I've mixed it in enough. You're just going to basically put it right in the mold. You're going to have to be quick about this. You're going to see it's already kind of getting thicker. So you're just going to go ahead and scrape as much as you can in there. What you're going to find with this soap is you're going to need to spritz it. So you can see it already started to cool. So this sets very fast. The other step is what you want to do is you do want to spritz it with an alcohol, rubbing alcohol. That's going to take the bubbles down. If you don't have alcohol, maybe the bubbles don't matter to you. It's more of a visual thing. So you just want to spritz the top. That makes all bubbles go away. Okay? Then you're going to have any kind of your decoration. So I have some jasmine flowers that are just some organic botanical jasmine flowers that just look pretty. And I'm just going to set them on top to set, just to give it a little decoration. I'm not going to mix it in because, again, like I said, if you mix it in and you don't use your soap, it's going to start to discolor the soap and bleed through the soap and turn brown. Okay? So you just kind of put a little decoration on there, and then you're going to let this set. This is going to take probably an hour if you let it sit on the counter. Okay? You can put it in the freezer, 20 minutes, it'll be hard. It's not, what I would recommend not to use it right away. I'd like to have it sit 24 hours so that it fully solidifies and everything and sets properly, and then you can start using it in your bathroom. So what you can do is you can make, so when you come out of the mold, you're just going to basically pop it right out, and it's going to be a little soap. So I actually put 2 little soaps together. So this is this soap, the same bottom, but then I had a nice little succulent mold, and I stuck it to the top to make a little cupcake. You know, you can do so many things with creative shapes, creative colors. So that has 2 different colors in it. It's brown, they're mixed together. So you can have all kinds of stuff. And basically, it's just soap. I have them in the bathroom, I have them at the kitchen counter. So, you know, like there's they're just really fun. It's a fun project for a family afternoon. I do it with my family. We do a monthly sip and suds at the Wellness Co-op because honestly, it's just fun to be crafty for me. So I have a lot of fun just making, what can I make this time? So like, I started making little soaps, and I was like, what if I made the soap inside of the soap? So then we decided, oh, what's it look like when we put the soaps together and we pour it around it? So now we have soap that's embedded, and it has like a star, and so it's endless possibilities of what you can think of. So for me, this is just my fun way of making soap.
Put a close-up.
I initially wanted to learn how to do the cold process, but for me, I'm not interested in using the lye. I want something that's already ready to make, and then I can change the color. I can pick and add an additive to it if I want the exfoliant, like the coffee, which is I tend to have a coffee one in the shower, or I just want one that smells different, and a small enough one that I can change it more frequently. I think about how much soap we have and how long that bar lasts. I like to rotate things around. So again, these sit for 24 hours, and then you just use it like regular soap. You should wrap. So once it sets, you would want to put. So after the hour, I would take it out of the mold and I'd put Saran wrap over it, just to kind of keep it, to let it set somewhere in a cool place, and then this way it just sets up nicely. So, any question?
The cupcake sized one.
Yeah.
How many days would it last if you were to use it like twice a day?
So I have a kitchen.
On the average.
So I have, to be honest, I make these every month. So I cannot, I feel like they're everywhere, and I don't know why they're lasting so long. I feel like they last a long time because you think about how much, I mean, this is about half, maybe a little bigger than half of a regular size piece of soap. Think about how long that lasts. It's the same material, so you're using it at the same rate. They're not going to disintegrate any quicker than soap is. It's like a bar of soap. It's going to suds up the same as it is. I have one on my kitchen counter that probably I've had for 2 months now, and it's just a little smaller than this, and it started as one of the big ones. And I was like, oh, come on. Because at that point, so honestly, it's comparable to standard everyday soap in the length of time it takes you to use a bar.
So chances are a family of 7 will use them quicker than a family of 2.
Agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm a family of 2. It takes us a long time to put soap around it. So we don't buy a lot of soap.
And when if you put them on a rack, wet, would they last longer?
So you definitely want your soap, in general, yes, soap should be put on a separate thing where it can have air
drain?
go around so it dries.
Okay.
If it's wet and it's constantly, yes, it's gonna eventually not evaporate, but
It disintegrates.
disintegrate. Yeah. So that's with anything. So you want to keep your soap dry, put it on. That's why they have the raised bars for the soap rest, those fancy ones you can get, or put it in an area where the water's not going to hit it all, constantly. It's going to last longer. That's with anything. So it's the same thing.
And what about the scent in it? Does that go away quicker?
The scent does go away, yes. The essential oils is potent in the sense that it's a better part of the plant for the essential oils. It's not a fragrance. So fragrance oil is made differently. That's got alcohol, that has all the different synthetic ingredients that we're trained to have that scent constantly throughout the entire bar, which is not great for you. So the essential oils eventually do disintegrate. That's just, I don't know how to make them stay.
That peppermint that you used, is that, you making that yourself, or are you buying that?
Nope. I buy oil from a company that produces oil.
You don't have the time to get essential oils out of you. It's a,
No,
I guess
so
You need a
you can
still. You need a
absolutely-
still.
well,
you could
it's an
still-
art, but it
You
takes
could.
time.
You could, so people make out of citrus, like out of the rinds, people make citrus stuff that way. I don't think if you put it in vinegar and you put it in a warm spot, I think there's some kind of, you can make your own at home in various.
It's not worth it.
Honestly, for the time, I think how long it takes. It depends on, what speaks to you and what your process is and how. I decide to do the research on the company and trust the company, and then that's how I decided that their product is good enough for me. So that's where I That's how I determine what to use.
So your endorsement is worth extra time to do other things?
Yes. It is. It's a personal preference too, you know. And if just the way my life is, I'm choosing to use that shortcut.
And one other question, do you have a favorite scent or favorite style for soap for yourself that you prefer over the others?
So I like the goat's milk base. Any kind of goat's milk base, I like the way that soap feels better. But prettier, the clear stuff just looks, it's fancy. It's a nice gift. So I like to do it as like Christmas time and birthdays. I like to make a bunch of gifts for coworkers at work too. Like it just shows more of a, I like to do it as like a personal gift. But for me personally, a peppermint is just, I like that it's awakening. It's a great mood. Everyone says lavender. Lavender is great in every way, but sometimes you need something different. So for me, peppermint is a nicer one.
Any more questions? We still have 5 minutes. Margaret
Ooh, I came in early.
came in early.
So also I encourage you guys, if you have questions about like I said, like all of Billy's formulas are in this book actually here, Making Soap. This one actually has the recipe, and it has a lot of different, it has Guinness in it. So lots of fun ideas. If you have some extra time, who doesn't like crafting? Oh,
Gabriel.
we have a question.
Two things from my
He's
youth
here to
again.
stump me.
I remember an olive oil soap, and it had a string through it that you hang the soap on.
Yeah.
But it was a soft soap.
Yeah, so I actually have some of that at home. I did not bring it because it's so soft that it actually, as it dries, it actually kind of deforms. And that's a Castile. Castile soaps are 100% olive oil. You wouldn't have the coconut oil or the vegetable oil or your tallow, beef tallow, or anything else in it. It's 100% olive oil is Castile. There's also Bastille, which I have here. I call it baby Bastille because it's made with buttermilk and carrot puree, and it's 80% olive oil, and the other 20% is coconut oil. So a Bastille is mostly olive oil. A Castile is 100% olive oil. And this is actually what I'm using right now at the gym, and I love it. It's very, very soft.
One further soap that I can remember, which is nearly
Irish
impossible
Spring?
to get. No. I've never bought Irish Spring. But is coal tar soap. It's next to impossible to find it anymore.
So I don't know about coal tar, but I am making pine tar soap. I have a few customers who are raving about it, that it helps with their eczema and psoriasis.
The smell is wonderful.
Well, it smells like a burnt forest, but that's wonderful. But I do have pine tar soap also. I didn't bring any tonight because it does smell. But it seems to be working for the people that buy it.
I use quite a bit of liquid soap. And I don't know if this is related, but I can't believe that all soaps are made with lye. Is that true? That all soaps are
Liquid?
made with some
Yeah.
degree, some percentage of, oh, that's so bizarre. What
However,
exactly does the lye do?
it's the base that reacts with the acid, the fatty acids,
So
to
is
make
it-
the salts. And that's why you don't want to get soap in your eyes, because it's salty. Now you want to watch out. There are products out there called beauty bars, and they may not be soap, in which case they may not have lye in them. And I don't know what they really do, other than I think they put a lot of oil on your skin.
Like a
moisturizing
lotion.
How do you even know that?
It would say beauty bar, like,
No, but I mean, how do you know that about beauty bars? Did you read that somewhere?
yeah.
Or
yeah.
At the library.
At the library.
At the library.
No, I've never heard of it.
No,
I've
actually,
seen
where that comes from is the government. The government has really strict regulations on what is called soap and what can't be called soap. And soap is lye
You know,
and fat.
I look at ingredient lists a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
And I can't say that it really comes to mind that when I looked at, because I don't like fragrance, like artificial fragrance.
Yep.
Fragrance, that's
Right.
where they usually slip in the preservatives or
Yep.
some crap.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
I don't remember ever seeing lye on the ingredient list.
Sodium hydroxide.
Good
That's just
one.
gonna say.
You're very
Yep.
good.
Sodium
Okay.
hydroxide. The other thing is, the natural glycerin is kept in these soaps. A lot of the soaps you buy in stores, they've taken the glycerin out and then they resell it back to you as conditioner. So you're getting the whole package right here. But yeah, if you're trying to reduce your plastic bottles, bar soaps and bar shampoos, and we do have some bath bombs and body lotion bars, which are beeswax, mango butter, a couple of other oils
I'm
that I
not
can't
sure.
remember. I apologize. And calendula petals are the only botanical that won't turn brown in your
Yes.
soap. And they're a natural
They
antibacterial,
stay
so they're a
yellow.
good thing. So they're a good thing to have in the soap. Any other question?
It's very good for you.
I would learn a lot.
So again, if anybody needs to book a Sip and Suds, let us know. If anybody is interested in a kit to make your own melt and pour, or just to purchase some soaps, they're up here also. Thank you very much for having us, Margaret and Barbara.
Thank you.
And I would like to just emphasize that the program this evening was sponsored by the Friends of the Jacob Edwards Library, and there are more programs the next 2 Thursday evenings. So everybody is welcome to come along, and they are free and open to the public.
And you folks saw me pour the soap in this mold, right?
Yes.
It's now solid.
Oh, you had another one back there, I know.
No, we cut that.